What's going on, guys? It's tutorial again with this brand new video. Well, in this video, we will understand deeper the concepts we learned about resultant of a force system, specifically the vectors that are in 2D plane or XY plane. From the previous videos, I hope you watch it already before clicking this one. Nara sa link in the description below, or you can scroll down to this channel para makita niyo itong previous videos. The formula for the resultant is this one. R squared is equal to the sum of the forces in the x direction squared plus the sum of the forces in the y direction squared. This is in 2D or the xy plane. What we commonly do when we have this one is we break down a force into its component with respect to the axis. So this, for example, green vector has a component with respect to this axis below. And then if I have another force, let's say this blue one, it has a component like this and like that. And the meaning of this sum of the forces in the x, if this is, let's say this is the x-axis right here, and then the y-axis here, is just the addition of these vectors that are along that axis. So meaning, the sum of the forces in the x is this one plus the green one. So that would be the sum of the forces in the x. This simply means that the sum of all these vectors that are along this axis, because we cannot add directly this one to this one. And I think a far more efficient way is breaking down these forces to its components. You can add these forces by the tip to tail, or putting the tip of this vector to the tail of the other vector. But what if there are a lot of forces like 10, 11, and we can do that? That always takes more time to do. So that's why this method is introduced. So the sum of the forces in the y simply means these forces added together along that axis we refer. Well, we can always change this axis as based on what we want. Say this is u or v. So the sum of the forces in the u, that's like that, and the sum of the forces in the y are in the v, and that's it, just like that. But for simplicity, it's always the common way around the x and y axis. And for this one, this is the addition, that and like that, based on this one. So why am I introducing this one? Because in this problem, as you can see, this is the common problem we can often encounter in the first exam of Statics of Rigid Bodies course, wherein after the professor discussed to us the concepts of resultant, how to get the resultant, how to add vectors, we are now onto the test. So they are testing us, but not on the problems they have given. Mali lang usbon. Kung sa ila example sa yun ra, pagka exam ana, expect the unexpected yun, kay mas lisod. Samaan ni ron if you have no knowledge about this problem. Wala yun. Lugos kaya ka-answer. Anyway, so this concept that we learned, this is the, mula gito, if we add the forces, dapat along siya sa axis. So in this one, since we're given with 300 pound as the resultant and its direction is up along the y-axis, what does it mean? Well, it simply means that if the direction of the resultant is only on the y-axis, therefore it has no x-axis. So this one, these components here, must be equal to 0 to have a resultant only in the y. So niya na siya nga, the resultant is 300 pound up along the y-axis. If that's the case, then this summation of f of x therefore is 0. Kaya naraman sa forces in the y ang resultant, there's no in x. Marang-arang of mingan siya nga tilted either 45 degrees, for example, from the x-axis, may resultant. That's the time na siya ay x component and y component. But then, kuhan raman siya in the y-axis alone. So therefore, this component is 0. This is what makes this problem medyo tricky gamay because some students, special just like me before, akong buhaton is after I do the sige na ako given nga 300 pound square. Okay, that's the resultant. I sum the forces in the x, which makes the very complicated or and error marong na because what's the sum in the forces in the x here? It's f cos theta minus 500 squared, and then plus for the y f sin theta or napagani di ay ni plus 240 cos 30 for the component of this force. Then for the y f sin theta minus kani 240 sin 30, in which sayop na daan because the given says it's only in the y. The resultant is only in the y. Therefore, this term here must be equal to 0 already. Okay? Hope you get it. Okay, kung ingani man gyud ang problem, if you simplify it further, it becomes very messed up or daghan ng error because as you square this, the terms became longer and longer, in which this one should be 0 based on the given. Dapat. So, if you want to know what the exact solution of this or the correct one, this should be 300 pound square, the given resultant. And then this summation of forces x must be 0 squared plus the summation of forces y, which is f sin theta, this component and this component. That's the only forces that has y components because this one has no y components because it's only along the x-axis. So we will write f sin theta minus 240 minus because it's in the negative y direction, 240 sin 30 only, and then squared. And then the other tricky part of this problem is that kinesia, after they get this equation, they just simply this one is already 0, so the square in this side and then square of the other side, we can take the square root and get the answer, say 300, and then this term here makancel ang squared, so kana na lang a term. But that solution alone, I think, is correct, but kulang siya because whenever you have something like this, x squared is equal to, let's say, 25, and we know that 25 is 5 squared, dili na siya only equal to x equals 5. Muna siya pinaka-sipyat ani nga problem. Because ang kaning x squared equals 5 squared, the answer of that should be positive negative 5 because this is a quadratic equation. So, meaning kung quadratic equation na siya, or the graph niya, na siya, for example, this one, this graph, na siya x, dari, munang roots niya is duha, the positive and the negative. Roots, or the factors of this, would be x plus 5 and x minus 5. And if you equate that to 0, because that's, if we move this one to the left, that's x squared minus 5 squared. So that would be x plus 5, x minus 5. It has a component of x equals negative 5 and also positive 5. So we do that like this. So dapat there are two things you should consider while doing this. So muna siya pinaka-lesson number 2. So lesson number 1, understand the given. The given says is only up along the y-axis, so dapat wala kay x component. Direkta 0 ni, matic 0. Ano siya. Then the second is, don't forget that if the equation is quadratic, na duha gunay roots ana. Or sometimes walay roots. Basta the concept of quadratic, pero just like this one, dapat you should consider the positive and negative roots of the answer. It could be in this side, that's positive negative 300, or on this side, positive negative of this term. So either of that's correct. Pero you should not use both. What do you mean by that? Both, you will use positive negative is equal to positive negative of this one. That would be error na. So dapat kung positive negative ka sa right side, dire wala na. Or kung positive negatives ka dire sa right side, dire sa left side, dili na. So suppose I choose positive negative of 300. So by taking the square root muna siya. And then for the other side, makancel ang squared. Ang mabilin kay this term na lang, f sin theta minus 240 sin 30. So with this one, naatay duha ka equation dapat, the negative and the positive, because it has two roots. Mula ito ang ingon. So copy ra ni siya f sin theta. Bali mo ni siya kuan equations you should consider. This one here, ato ibutang ipalayo ni. After this one, so you can see we have two unknowns, which is f and the theta. We can solve this with this equation alone because it's only one equation and we need two equations to solve two unknowns. That's the murag standard. If you have three unknowns, you should have three equations. We have four unknowns, you should have four equations at least. And in here, you have two unknowns, so dapat na tayo two equations. So this would be the first equation. And then the second one, from the information we got on this one, bali naman ta nga sum of the forces and along the x-axis is 0. So we can use that. If we sum all the forces in the x equals 0, dili pa ni siya equilibrium nga problem ha. This is just the given, based on the given. So what would the sum of the forces in the x? So this one has a component, this one. So 2 going to the right, then 1 going to the left. So since this is adjacent to the angle, that's f cosine theta in this one, 240 cos 30. So if you find it difficult to yet these components, I have separated videos wherein I discuss here how to find the components of a force. So better watch it there. Okay, in here we just go directly and solve this problem. So after doing that, summing of the forces and the x, well, this is equal to 0. F cosine theta plus this component going to the right, 240 cos 30. 240 cosine of 30 minus this one going to the left, minus 500. So if we simplify this a little bit more, transposing these constants to the other side, or if sa other kan pa, subtract or add 500 both sides, so mo ni. And then subtract 240 cos 30 and both sides, so mo ni. And then mabilin dire f cos theta. And if we divide both sides by cosine of theta, and then here cosine of theta, we now have the value for the f, which is this one. And we only have to find what's theta to get what's the force, f. So by substituting this equation we got to this f here from the first equation, since that's all f and f is equal to f, yeah, pwede na to siya substitute diha. And if we do that, that's 500 minus here. Let's move this below to have more space. We also do that to the second root. This is not equation 1, equation 2, and equation 3. These are all equation 1 and these are all equation 2. Mong duha ni sila kay root 1 and root 2. Quadratic equation has two roots. Naman na siya, then diripod 500 it has sine of theta here. This one. This is the value of f and then times sine of theta. And now what is sine over cosine? That's tangent. And therefore this one would be 500 minus 240 cosine of 30 times tangent of theta. So now we only have one unknown, which is theta. So we can now solve for what's the angle, and then if we got the angle theta, we can substitute the theta to this equation to get what's the correct f. Plus 300. Then by rearranging this one, algebra na ni siya diri nga part, guys. Tangent of theta. That would be, so sa akong gibuhat, I just transpose this one to the other side. It's mo ni siya nga plus. And then divide both sides by this value. Then by getting the arctangent of both sides, theta now will be equal to tan inverse of this value here. Muna siya ibutang dire tan inverse. Theta will now have value for theta. That's the first root, the theta. Then for this one, I'll go ahead directly and so if you have calculators right there while watching this video, you can go ahead and plug this into your calculator. And hopefully we'll get the same answer, because the first theta is this one. That's 55.17 degrees. That's positive. And then for the other one, that this is going to be negative 31.63 degrees. In which, if we come to think of it, they're all actually correct. But this negative one, for the positive angle, that would be the angle from the reference axis, this one. That's counterclockwise. So if we mean by counterclockwise is this one, so the counter, mayon dire. Counterclockwise have positive angle. And then, clockwise direction have negative angle from this reference axis. And since, based on the given, we need to find the positive angle, because this one given to us by this illustration, we need to have positive angle. So therefore, we will use this one, this root. Although this is also correct, we will use this one because the illustration tells us that it's positive. So by substituting this value, 55.17, to this equation here, we can now find the value of f, which is 500, I think 511 point something. Basta I will just 511 round off. So this is now the answer to this problem. The answer is 511 for f. This is 511 pounds, because these are all in pounds. And then the direction is 55. This theta would be 55.17 degrees with respect to this x-axis. So that's it, guys, for this video, and I hope wala na mo nalibog, or kung malibog na man, just comment down below your queries. I hope I can answer that. Basta ang gibuhat ra to ani nga problem is that analyze it and then understand what's given. And then the concept of quadratic equation. So that's it, guys, and I think maura na kay sa kaning problem kipangita ra is kani f and theta. Actually di pa ni siya equilibrium because next chapter pa equilibrium. But then tatagan man tag given nga ngani. Common kani siya nga problem na inyong mahibalag, especially sa first exam. So better study this one, guys, and practice lang. Hope you can do well in your studies, in engineering especially. And good luck to your career. Good luck to us. Thank you so much for watching, and if you like this one, share this to your classmates. And of course, subscribe to this channel. That's it. Peace out.